The early years. Millard Fillmore was born on January 7, 1800, in a humble log cabin in Summerhill, New York, far removed from the polished halls of power he would one day occupy. The son of Nathaniel and Phoebe Fillmore, his early life was marked by scarcity. His father, a poor farmer, could barely provide for his family, and his mother, though strong in character, had little ability to offer formal schooling. Fillmore's world was one of struggle, each day a battle against poverty, and each moment an opportunity to dream of something greater. The young boy's education was limited, with only a few months of formal schooling in his early years. Yet he was not deterred. At an age when most children would be content with the simplicity of farm life, Millard was already showing an insatiable thirst for knowledge. He would walk miles to borrow books, his mind consuming every page, eager to understand the world beyond his rural surroundings. It was through these books, often read by the dim light of a fire, that Fillmore's character began to take shape. However, knowledge did not come easily. Fillmore's family struggled to make ends meet, and the prospect of a formal education seemed a distant dream. His path forward was carved not by privilege, but by the will to forge his own destiny. It was not long before he realized that a life of hardship awaited those who remained in poverty without a trade. Millard chose to apprentice with a clothmaker, spending long hours learning a craft that would at least offer him the promise of sustenance. Yet, this was not to be his final destination. In his late teens, driven by a deeper longing to escape the limitations of his circumstances, Fillmore made the pivotal decision to pursue law. He left the security of his apprenticeship behind and moved to the nearby town of East Aurora to study under a local lawyer. His journey was one of great sacrifice, living in modest conditions, barely making ends meet, yet pushing forward with a singular focus. It was a grueling, solitary endeavor, but Fillmore's resolve never wavered. He understood that the path to success was not paved with ease. Rather, it was shaped through perseverance, self-discipline, and a relentless belief in one's ability to rise above adversity. By the age of 23, Millard Fillmore was admitted to the bar. He opened his own practice in Buffalo, New York, where his reputation began to grow. His rise was not meteoric, but steady, built on his integrity, hard work, and the belief that even the most unassuming beginnings could lead to something greater. In those early years of his legal career, Millard Fillmore learned not only the law, but the art of listening, an invaluable skill that would serve him well as his journey took him from the law offices of Buffalo to the very corridors of power. As Millard looked back on his humble origins, he understood that it was the struggles of his early life that had shaped his character, teaching him resilience in the face of adversity. It was clear to him that while the world might have set him on a path of limitations, he had the power to forge his own destiny. His journey had only just begun. Political rise and key moments. Millard Fillmore's early success as a lawyer in Buffalo laid the groundwork for his entrance into politics, but it was his growing dissatisfaction with the state of government that pushed him to public service. In the early 1830s, he felt the pull of the Whig Party's platform, which aligned with his belief in a strong, efficient government that promoted economic development. He was drawn not just to politics, but to the opportunity to bring about change. This idealism led to his first run for public office in 1829, when he was elected to the New York State Assembly. Here, his work was marked by a firm belief in policy over party loyalty, earning him respect even from those who disagreed with his views. But it was in the halls of the U.S. House of Representatives where Fillmore's political story truly began to take shape. In 1832, he won a seat in Congress, aligning himself with the growing Whig movement. The young congressman quickly distinguished himself, not by his speeches, but by his work ethic and his calm, calculated approach to policy. He was a pragmatist, someone who valued practical solutions over idealistic rhetoric. His position on economic development, championing internal improvements and supporting tariffs, made him a favorite among those who saw a growing nation in need of modernization. As his political influence grew, Fillmore's role in the Whig Party evolved. In 1844, he was re-elected to Congress and became a key ally to the party's leadership. He was not the firebrand or the showman, but his voice carried weight, grounded in his deep understanding of the country's needs. This quiet strength caught the eye of Whig leaders, who saw in him a capable and steady hand, someone who could navigate the complexities of a nation on the brink of division. The defining moment of Fillmore's political ascent came in 1848, when he was selected as Zachary Taylor's running mate in the presidential election. Taylor, a war hero with little political experience, needed a vice president who could provide the necessary political acumen. Fillmore, though still largely unknown on the national stage, fit the bill. His role in the campaign was low-key, yet his quiet demeanor and steadfast character won him the respect of many. When Taylor unexpectedly died in 1850, Fillmore was thrust into the presidency. The nation was at a crossroads. Intense debates over slavery were threatening to tear the Union apart. Fillmore, though a relative newcomer to the highest office, was now the man responsible for navigating this turmoil. His first major challenge was the Compromise of 1850, a package of legislation meant to address the issue of slavery in newly acquired territories. The compromise was deeply controversial. Some saw it as a necessary step to preserve the Union, while others felt it was a betrayal of moral principles. Fillmore's role was clear. He had to push the compromise through Congress, despite fierce opposition from both pro-slavery and anti-slavery factions. His decision to support the compromise would define his presidency. He believed in maintaining the Union at all costs, even if it meant making difficult and unpopular decisions. In the end, Fillmore's determination paid off. The compromise passed, and he emerged as a president willing to take the heat for the sake of unity. His decision, however, came with consequences. While he had preserved the Union for a time, he had also alienated many in both the North and South, and his presidency would be marked by this tension. Despite his efforts to balance the nation's conflicting interests, the scars of the compromise were just beginning to show. The deepening divide over slavery was now an undeniable force in American politics, and Fillmore's leadership was about to be tested in ways he had never imagined. The presidency and legacy. When Millard Fillmore assumed the presidency in 1850, the United States was on the precipice of disaster. The issue of slavery, a festering wound that had divided the nation for decades, was nearing a boiling point. Fillmore's decision to support the Compromise of 1850 had been one of political pragmatism, an attempt to hold the Union together, even if it meant appeasing both pro-slavery and anti-slavery factions. Yet, as he settled into the role of the 13th president, he realized that his actions would have lasting consequences, both for his presidency and for the future of the country. The Compromise of 1850, a set of 5 bills, sought to address the status of slavery in newly acquired territories from the Mexican-American War. The legislation included the controversial Fugitive Slave Act, which required citizens to assist in the capture of runaway slaves. To Fillmore, this act was essential to maintaining the delicate balance between North and South, but it came at a cost. While it garnered support from Southern states, it enraged abolitionists in the North, further straining the already fragile national unity. As president, Fillmore's role was not just to guide the compromise through Congress, but to defend it, a responsibility that would weigh heavily on him throughout his time in office. At home, Fillmore's domestic policies were focused on strengthening the economy and modernizing the country. He was a firm believer in infrastructure development, particularly the expansion of railroads, which he saw as the key to fostering national growth. During his time in office, he signed bills that expanded the railroads and improved trade routes, seeking to unite the country's fragmented economy. He also worked on foreign relations, most notably securing the Treaty of Kanagawa with Japan in 1854, opening the door to trade between the two nations. This diplomatic triumph was one of Fillmore's rare successes in foreign policy, standing in stark contrast to the tensions at home. Despite these achievements, Fillmore's presidency was marred by criticism. His support of the Fugitive Slave Act alienated many in the North, and his inability to address the growing sectional divide between the North and South left him vulnerable to political attacks. His leadership during this period was characterized by a quiet resolve, but also a sense of isolation. While he sought to preserve the Union, The country's divisions seemed to be deepening beyond his control. By the end of his term in 1853, Fillmore's reputation was a mixed one. He had avoided the worst-case scenario of disunion, but at great personal and political cost. He left office without securing a strong political base, and his support for the Compromise of 1850, while preserving the Union in the short term, was seen as a compromise of his own political future. As the years passed, Fillmore's legacy became more clouded. Historians would come to view him as a president caught in the crossfire of a nation torn apart by slavery. While his policies were aimed at preserving the Union, they failed to address the root causes of the conflict. His time in office was marked by a persistent tension between his personal beliefs and the demands of his political reality. The nation he left behind was one that was increasingly divided, and though Fillmore had played a key role in trying to keep it together, his actions would be judged in the harsh light of the Civil War that followed. Though often overlooked by history, Millard Fillmore's presidency remains a testament to the complexities of leadership during a time of national crisis. His efforts to navigate the political minefields